My friends, I apologize. I've done you a disservice. Or maybe I'm just bad at YouTube. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Retro Pop Planet. On November 2nd, 2025, Six Flags America in Largo, Maryland closed its doors for good after 50 years of operation. I found out about the park's closure back in June, and I fully intended to document the park either over the summer or at some point this fall for at least one last trip. But I just ran out of weekends. And then the day that I remembered the park was closing soon, I thought was the day that they were actually closing. And by that point, it would have been way too late to make a trip. But the way the YouTube algorithm works, they must have known that I had been looking up stuff on the computer, because all of a sudden I was getting a flood of videos to watch on YouTube. And of course, I watched several of them. One of which is the account, I believe it's Please Stop Blogging. He was there like almost every day, and including the last weekend. And then I watched the video from the last day. And I can't say that I miss going the last day, because it's as much of a celebration of everything that the park stood for. The lines looked insane, and of course, Superman broke down at the very end of the day. That's the most Six Flags thing ever. When we first moved to Virginia in the late 80s, it was actually called Wild World, and I've documented it before on this channel where I talked about all the TV that I watched when we first moved here, and the commercials that I would see all the time on my daytime television programs were Wild World commercials. I mean, they were endless.
Looks like you're ready for a good time.
You bet. I can see it now. Basking in the sun, cooling in the water, riding on the waves.
Checking out the scenery?
Yeah.
Hey, you better get going. The beach is 3 hours away.
The beach? Who wants to spend the day on the bridge? I'm at Wild World. It's just around the corner, so now I have more time for fun.
What about the new Rafters run?
It's awesome water fun for two.
See the Gong Show live this Saturday at Wild World.
And then when Wild World went away and a new ownership group turned over and it became Adventure World, I got fed all of those commercials. You know, the Adventure World commercials. Like, how could you forget those? And then, of course, there were all the rumors. I don't know how founded they were in truth, but that Cal Ripken Jr. somehow had a stake in the company. I remember at one point everyone said that Cal Ripken Jr. just owned it outright. I mean, these are just like the crazy rumors that were swirling all through the 1990s for a park that I didn't really know a whole lot about. Living on the Virginia side of the DC line, the parks that we always went to were King's Dominion and Busch Gardens Williamsburg. King's Dominion, when I was growing up, was actually owned by Paramount, so they had all the Paramount characters, all the different movie attractions and rides based on Paramount movies. And then Busch Gardens Williamsburg was sort of the destination park where you would go with your family and you'd take a weekend, and you would do one day you would probably spend in the park, and then the other day you would do all the historical stuff in Colonial Williamsburg. I just had more familiarity with King's Dominion. So I didn't really start experiencing Six Flags part of it until probably the late 90s. I think I did go to Adventure World once when it was Adventure World, and then Six Flags is where I had most of my memories from. Unfortunately, Six Flags was always kind of the grimy little brother, and I'm not debasing it by saying this. Most people know that it was not considered the greatest park. A lot of the stuff tended to be very run down. Rides seemed to be always broken. There were days where you didn't even know what was going to be working when you were there. You just never knew what to expect when you went to Six Flags. And we were there for a lot of the early openings. We were at the park when the Batman ride first opened, and I think it worked once that day, and the rest of the day it was down. So I didn't actually ride it until maybe another year or so later, and we waited all day. We rode it once. I thought, it wasn't all that fun, and then the rest of the day it was broken. So it was that kind of a park. You know, over the years you would realize that things were sort of slowly falling apart, not getting taken care of. Things always needed a coat of paint. It always seemed like there were things that were just a little rough around the edges, but that was the character of the park. They just was sort of made it fun. As the Interstate 95 got to be more and more crowded, it was taking a lot longer to get to places like King's Dominion, which used to be, you know, about an hour's drive away from me, could tick upwards to 2 hours, and on the way back you might get stuck in 3 hours traffic on 95 North heading up towards DC, and it was a nightmare. Once we realized that Six Flags was only about half an hour away, and that was a pretty consistent time that it always took to get there, it seemed to be a much better destination. And then somewhere in the mid-2000s, the prices of the parks down south really spiked, whereas Six Flags kind of hovered around the $40 mark, and then I remember it was like 50 bucks, and I think the last time I went was around $60. It seems like a lot now, but I can't imagine the expense of running one of these things. And the other thing about Six Flags is it kind of became laughable how few people would visit on the times that we would go. And we were going at least once a summer for several years. And our move was we would always go to Hurricane Harbor first, spend a couple hours at Hurricane Harbor, get changed, and then head into the main park and spend the rest of the day riding roller coasters. And Hurricane Harbor was a lot of fun. And we were there the summer that they opened the Tony Hawk half pipe ride, which I remember being scared to ride on. And I'm not a person who's normally gets scared on rides, but that Tony Hawk ride was crazy. They lost the trademarks or something, so it eventually just became half pipe. There was a bunch of other fun rides there. The other crazy thing is I remember when Two-Face was there. I didn't realize at the time, I didn't realize this actually until doing research for this video, that Two-Face, there was some sort of an accident on the ride. But I remember one summer going there. Apparently it's in Italy somewhere at an amusement park, so I watched a ride video from there, and it reminded me of how creepy the ride could actually be. And I remember this summer, I guess it must have been the summer where the accident happened, where there was a chain link fence of it and it said something like ride's broken or ride is not in use. And then the next summer we were there and it looked like parts of the ride were gone, like the little entrance shed that you would go into to board the ride was gone. And then the next year part of the ride was gone, and then the following year the ride was completely gone. So it took a while to dismantle it, and it was always kind of a running joke when we would go ride the Wild One. We're saying, what's going on with Two-Face? Are they ever going to open that up? And then once they started stripping it, what's going on with it now? Like where is the ride going? And my friends and I, we would ease into the park slowly. So we would go to Hurricane Harbor and then work our way up through some of the smaller rides, then ride Wild One, and then work our way through Gotham, and then ride the ultimate ride, Superman. My favorite ride in the park by far was Superman. And I gotta tell you, I've ridden a lot of roller coasters in my life. Superman is, if not number one, is definitely in the top 5 of all the rides that I've ever ridden in my life. It is that much fun. And I hope it ends up somewhere where I can access it. I want to be able to go to Superman again. I remember when Mind Eraser opened, and the joke with that ride was your head would get banged around so much that you would actually get off the ride with a headache. So that one you could only really ride once during a day. I really enjoy wooden roller coasters. Again, the Wild One was a really fun ride. And then when Roar opened, I really enjoyed Roar. I know it had some people that didn't really enjoy it that much, but I enjoyed Roar. I always thought Joker's Jinx was okay. It wasn't my favorite. So if I only rode it once during the day, I was perfectly fine. I do like the magnet rides, the ones that pull you, and that was the only one in the park. But the rest of the experience after the initial launch, I didn't really find to be all that exhilarating. But the one ride in the park that was very surprising, and I wonder how many people shared this experience with us. My friends and I, we really enjoyed the Penguin Blizzard. That ride was a lot of fun, and it was fun to hit that during the day. And the ride seemed to have a mind of its own, and depending on which raft you would get, I'll never forget one time we were riding and our friend Steve was across the raft from us, and he's laughing and we're just joking, and all of a sudden the raft dips and comes up, and Steve's head was like above the side rails of the track, and we thought he was going to go over the side, and we're just like screaming with laughter because it was so ridiculous. Of course he was perfectly safe, but that was just the random nature of that ride, and we would try to ride that several times a day if we could. And then for this video, I was going back and realizing it's been a few years since I've been to the park, because there were a couple rides I was not familiar with. I don't recall ever seeing the Wonder Woman ride, which is a ride that I don't touch. I don't like those whipping circular swing type rides that go very high. I stay away from those. That's not my bag, man. I just can't do it. I remember one time, this company my dad was working with at the time actually rented the entire park out. And that was pretty fun because it actually might have been the most people I had seen in the park in several years. And we had it kind of all to ourselves, and my brother and I, because we had gone many times, we knew the lay of the land. We knew which rides we wanted to go to. I could get around that park without a map. And you also learn lessons like it's not worth eating in the park. There were a couple times in the early goings where, you know, you would take a couple extra dollars and you knew you were going to be eating. At one point there was like a Sbarro, and I remember I got like 2 slices of pizza, and this is kind of the way it is at amusement parks. I don't know, there was so much oil on it, it was like not edible, and I'm not the kind of person to turn my nose up at fast food, as you know, but it just was not great. Another time I remember there was a Panda Express, and I ordered the orange chicken, and I bit into the orange chicken, and it was like pink. So yeah, I didn't eat that. Took it back. I actually got my money back. So generally what we would do is we would actually stop, swing into like a Popeyes. We had this kind of a routine where we go to Popeyes and we'd go into the park. And if we got out early enough, we probably would eat somewhere outside of the park on the way home. But over the years, you know, you do start to notice when a park is empty. And of course, they can't sustain themselves if only, you know, 200 people are in there during the day. And I remember there were some days where there was nobody in the park. You're talking dog days of summer where we felt like we had it to ourselves. And I remember one time during the middle of the day, we rode Superman like 4 times in a row. Team members just let us stay on the ride to the point where we knew we should probably get off and take a little break because they probably were just going to keep letting us ride the ride. I remember the same day we did the same thing with the Jinx. We just rode that sort of over and over and over again. There just was nobody there. Park can't sustain itself like that. I don't know why. Well, I do kind of know why. What happened to the commercials? I can't tell you the last time I saw a Six Flags commercial. They must have completely taken all of their money out of advertising and moved them to other areas of their business that might have been performing poorly. And this is not a video where I intend to sort of dog a company, because I know that, you know, they went through several years of downturns, economic downturns, where people couldn't afford to justify going to a theme park. But they did away with the coupons. I mean, I remember you could go to the local grocery store all summer long and there were coupons for like $5 off. Give me a coupon that's worth it, even if it's $10, $5, whatever, we're gonna come to the park. They stopped doing that. They stopped advertising their new rides. I think it's problematic that in the early part of this video, I talk about not knowing that there were new rides there. When I was a kid and there was a new roller coaster at any major theme park, we're gonna know about it. We're gonna see like lead-in advertisements. We're gonna see months of promotions getting you excited. Similar to how they did the new Big Bad Wolf ride down at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, where were teasers monthly. Even YouTube advertising. I never saw anything for YouTube, yet I get casino ads all the time on YouTube. It's wild. But nothing to take away from the decades of team members that work there. I never had a bad experience with any employee of the park. I thought everyone was wonderful. It's obvious that they enjoyed their jobs. It seemed like everybody enjoyed working there, from the performers to even just the maintenance people. It seemed like a cool place to work. And I had a friend that worked at King's Dominion for several years, and he loved it. Six Flags was only on about 20% of the entire acreage that was owned by the company. If you look at it on an overhead map, it's a very small parcel of land that they owned, and it was not a big amusement park at all. Like, you could walk around that park in maybe 30 minutes at the most. Whereas King's Dominion, it's gonna take you a while to walk around that thing. I mean, I've seen all kinds of stuff about, you know, is another company gonna take it over? Is Disney gonna try to take it over? Is any of the other major amusement park companies gonna try to move in? I think Six Flags, though, is the only company that the park was in continuous operation under, because reading the history beforehand, there were definite gaps of a couple years in between companies where the park kind of stood empty and nothing was going on there. So kudos to them for keeping something going for so long. don't. But it's hard to believe that this area is gonna have anything going for it other than maybe mixed use commercial real estate, retail with housing. I don't know. I can't really, it's a weird road. It's a very long road. It's essentially a highway. But not to be outdone, I decided to head up there recently on a Saturday just to see what was going on, because there's a lot of speculation about the park. I know it is actively for sale. Six Flags was located near the Washington Commanders Stadium, and it's off this very busy road. Looking for a place that I could pull over or park, I noticed that a lot of the signs were still standing. But the main gate signs had been taken down. This was a Saturday, and with the cones and the cars going in and out of the main gates, it looked like a normal operating day. A security guard walked out of the gate and down over to an adjacent bus stop, I'm assuming to head home. I'm sure she was wondering what I was up to. Because the trees are almost completely bare of leaves, I could see Superman and a couple of other rides through the woods. It was a little sad. I parked at a mega church across the way, and heading back to my truck discovered an artifact of long lost summer days. So when I went out there, I had to actually park at the mega church that's across the street, and then I did a little cutback and I crossed the road where decades of employees must have stood out at the two bus stops. There's one in a little niche area right across the street, and there's one right outside the amusement park. And the day that I was there was busy. They had cones up, they had people coming in and out of the park, people driving. I'm imagining people that are either dismantling it. I don't know. I don't really know what's going on there right now. I'm assuming they're taking the rides down and they're selling them off to other companies, which is generally what these parks do. There was a lot of people there. And because it was late fall, you could actually see a lot of the rides through the woods, which is cool and depressing at the same time. I did get a chance to see Superman off in the distance and a couple of the other rides. You can definitely still see the Tower of Wonder Woman. At some point, you won't see anything in there anymore, and they're probably gonna just demo everything, which is really sad. But anyway, I don't have any new angle here or anything to share. I just wanted to share my experiences. I have shared experiences with a lot of defunct parks. I just want to impart a little bit of memory here as well. Sad I didn't get the chance to document it, but you know, right here is where all the documentation is. Thank you for all the people that have been posting videos on YouTube. Leave your Six Flags memories down below, or Adventure World or Wild World, or even the park that it was beforehand, the actual safari park. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Rest in peace to a real one.